On the second segment, I will quickly skim through most important tools of the Character tab, which has everything you need to start rigging characters. I will quickly undock it and put it on the side. So let me start with just simple joint or a bone, whatever you want to call it. And what you're gonna do with this is you would like to place it in spots where the bones are typically. So let me just quickly drag in our front view, drag it here or so. And then we can as well just use a joint tool. Instead of making a bunch of joints through here, you can just hold Control and click it. And then we click it on another one while holding Control. And then on the wrist. And then I'm gonna make one more for fingertips, even though you would probably rig this separately with a bunch of bones, but I want to just quickly show the workflow. So now we can take a look at our bone structures here. We also gonna need to take this this bone here, or joint. Let me call it joint from now on because it may be confusing. So you can grab this and you can move it around, but as you can see, it takes entire hierarchy together when I'm moving it around like normal. So what you can do is you can select the joint tool, and if you go on the top view, now you can align it how you like it, and it automatically detects correct axis when you move it, so it corresponds to the parent and rotates the joint. So it's a little bit easier to place this way. Let me just quickly check if everything's fine. Everything seems fine. Okay, and that's how we have a basic joint structure. Now we can apply a skin deformer to our geometry. So for now we'll hide this clock, and I'm just gonna click on skin here. So what you can do now, you can drag it under your geometry that you want to affect by joints. So if you don't have the skin deformer enabled under your geometry, you will not be able to affect it correctly. So now what we can do is, if you would move the joints, you can see nothing is happening yet. What we are missing is hiding here in character tags by clicking right mouse button, character tags, and weight tag. So in this section we will weight, or we will show which joints this geometry gonna be affected by. And if we lock the tab maybe, and then select all of our joints here, drag it here, bam. So now if we move the joints, still nothing happens. One more thing we are missing is actually skinning the arm. So for that, I'm gonna use Weight Manager here. If you click on it, let me maybe put it here. A little bit higher. And now we can put some weighting on our character. So the workflow I like to do is make a bunch of selections, and then I'm just skinning it on those selections instead of doing it with the weight brush, because I think weight brush is more suitable for smoothing the weighting than actually applying it. So here, if you hold Control and click on these tabs, you can activate them both at the same time. And now I'm gonna quickly skin this character by going to my mesh, selecting what I want to skin. So maybe for the beginning of the arm, I want to skin it here on our collarbone. Then how I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna select everything else, or invert the selection, and now skin it to the shoulder part of the arm. So you see it, I skinned the entire thing, and if you're doing it with this method, make sure you have auto normalize on. Otherwise, you're gonna apply a bunch of like weightings that are above 100% on your mesh, and that may cause some issues when you're gonna move some of the bones. So now for our elbow or forearm, I'm gonna select the loop that is closest to the actual rotation of the joint. Actually, maybe even this one as well. And then select everything else and weight it by clicking apply selected. And the mode you can use add. If you have auto normalize on, you can use add, and it's gonna do exactly the same as absolute, but I kind of like to use absolute because then I know for sure that the weights are applied on my selection and it doesn't override any other weight. Okay, so I have the forearm weighted. Now for the wrist, I'm gonna select again the mesh that's closest to the loop and apply selected. Here we go. Now if we click on our hierarchy or on the weight tag, actually if I click on here, we should see all of our colors here, or all of our skinning actually. And with this we can already, if we move our collarbone, you can see it's already moving. And the same with our arms and forearms or whatnot. So now what I would like to do is create a quick IK chain so we can quickly test our weighting. In this tutorial I will show you how to do it from ground up. So I want to do the IK chain from the shoulder to the wrist. Actually, instead of that, I'm just going to select the top joint of my IK chain and go to character tags IK. I will unlock my attributes manager and I will select the last joint I want it to be in my IK chain. So in my case, I will select the joint tree. For the goal, I'm gonna make a goal here. This is gonna be our controller. And you can see already that we have the IK chain going. Our problem is that the hand weighting is quite sharp. So if you see here, when you bend the arm, it gets really stiff. So what we want to do is, okay, maybe not control. It's maybe not reset PSR, but just Control Z it. And actually on my goal, I'm gonna go to coordinates and I'm gonna go to freeze transformation and I'm gonna freeze all. So next time if I move my IK, I can just click reset PSR. If you don't have this button, you can hold Shift C and just type in reset PSR and then select this and drag it on your timeline, whatever, or how is it called in your menus. So if I click reset PSR, it goes back to the original position. So now what we want to do is smooth out the arm, and we're gonna use the weight tool for that. You can do the smoothing over weight manager as well, but for this kind of job I would actually prefer using, you know, my own weighting here, because maybe I want it to be a little bit different, and I think it kind of gives this more of this control that you kind of look for when you do the smoothing of the weights. So let's move the arm like this so we can see our bug that we had before, and just gonna select more weighting. I'm gonna select the joints I want to be smoothing between, and then I'm gonna go to weight tool, and here we have the mode, and right now I have mode smooth. Maybe you have add by default, but right now I'm gonna use smooth, and I'm gonna use only visible only, so I want it to be only on my geometry that I'm seeing here. Let me scale up the brush a little bit. By holding Control and middle mouse click, you can change the scale. And I'm just gonna very softly brush it away on the elbow part. Just clicking. Nothing too intense. So you can see that elbow looks already way better. And Maybe we also want to smooth out a little bit our bicep part. Just a tiny bit, so it doesn't look that bad. And let's move that about. So it's still quite sharp, but it looks way better than it was before. If you would do it, you know, for an entire character, you would take more time to make the weights better. And actually the elbows and knees is usually one of the most difficult parts to skin very good. So usually do it quite smooth, and then you apply some extra weighting on the elbows to make them look better or sharper. So anyway, what I also want to explore is cluster, actually, because maybe you're gonna need it for, I don't know, some specific deformation, and I just want to show you how to use it. So what you do now is you can select the arm, and if you go to point mode, you can select some points. For example, I want to just take the shoulder, right? So let me scale up my brush and just select the shoulder here. Right now, what I want to do is make the vertex weight, or make a vertex tag on my arm that is gonna show where is the selection. So we're set vertex weight, and let's do a value 50, for example. Okay. So now if I click my vertex weight, you can see that it's 50%, and it shows by showing this kind of yellowish color. If I do 100%, the color would be pure yellow. And what you can do now is you can make points here, and if you drag it under here, you could see since we don't have a target, all of our points went to kind of like 0 position, or the parent of itself. And what we can do is just grab like a null or something, and let's feed it to that cluster. Target is null, and if I move my null now, I can move this geometry. So this is pretty cool for rigging if you want to do like some emotions, or if you want to do some emotions and you want to do it procedurally instead of actually doing, you know, complicated joints on the face or something. And you can always just turn it off like this. What you can also do, and I'm gonna turn off the cluster now and delete it because I don't need it that much. Also, there is falloffs here, and pretty much I don't use them that much because I kind of find them really unuseful, in a sense that you can pretty much just weight specific parts of a character with a joint, but again, it's kind of like interactive tool, so you could change the weighting of your joint interactively by moving the falloff. I will show you really quick how it works. So if you take the falloff and let's make a sphere out of it, let's scale it down, and let's go to our weight tag, and let's just drag the falloff on the joint we want to affect. So in my case, let's affect the forearm joint. And now if you'll see the weighting here, and let's show our forearm. You see we have our weighting applied on the forearm, but also if I would move my falloff here, that's weird, it doesn't affect for some reason. Wait. Doesn't really show up. Whoosh. Ah, okay. So I have to drag the falloff on the part where there's another weight affected. So as you can see here, our forearm weighting is being applied on the upper part of the arm. Even though the weighting is kind of the same in our weight manager, but the falloff still affects that other arm. So I don't really use it that much, but maybe you'll find a good use of it. A couple more tools I want to show is probably the pose morph. So what the pose morph is great for is blend shapes. So if you never heard about blend shapes, they're pretty much used all around the industry for just facial animations pretty much, and then you can do a bunch of stuff with them, and you can use them for a lot of different things than actually characters. So I will quickly show how it looks like. If we just click add pose morph, and as you see, it already applied specific pose morph options here, but we don't want that. I will start from the beginning and just gonna right click, go on character tags, and go to pose morph. So now we don't have any options pre-selected for us, and in our case I want to record only points and maybe rotation as well, just to show how it works. So back to tag. Now on the edit section or on edit mode, we pre-made the poses of our affected areas, and then on animate we actually animate between them with the sliders. So let me quickly show how it looks like. So for example, if I select some points here, let's say are the same area that I selected before, and I'm just gonna drag it up, right? So now if since I dragged it up, this pose has been recorded on pose 0. And if I take the slider and drag it backwards, it's gonna go back. And now if I click animate, I can pretty much just animate with this pose enabled, and then I can go to pose morph and just play with this. This is really awesome for blend shapes, and you can do a lot of stuff with this. You can do, for example, if you bend the arm, you can do the muscle popping out from the arm on the same time. Anyway, one more tool I want to show is if I click reset PSR, and maybe let's turn off our pose, and I don't really need it. Also, I would like to show that you can use pose morph not only for, you know, moving the geometry points or something, but you can also rotate the joints around. So for example, I want to rotate this this wrist joint, and I'm gonna go to character tags again and select pose morph, and now I select only rotation. So now if I just rotate this joint, so for example the arm goes up, and as you can see it recorded the state, and you can do some cool stuff. For example, I use it quite often on the joints if I want to do, for example, the hand animation, so the finger animation. So I want to kind of have the sliders instead of FKs sometimes for the fingers of the character. So I use this quite often. But for now, I'm just gonna put it on animate, and maybe let's keep it on 0. So what I would like to show you as well is actually constraining our geometry to something, or actually a constraint tag. I find the constraint tag being one of the most useful tags in Cinema, and what it pretty much does is just takes one object and attaches to another object. But what's the cool part about it is that you can do it from anywhere in a hierarchy. So for example, I have this clock and I want to parent it to my wrist, for example. So you could do it in a lot of different ways. You could actually just weight it and you know, apply a skin deformer underneath, and pretty much just applying it to this or whatever, this joint. You could do that. What you can also do is use the constraints. So if you right click on any other object, you go to constraint. Also, we have this empty panel where we can select the modes of constraint. So in my case, I would like to parent it to my wrist joint, or actually the forearm joint, because it's resting on top of it. I click on parent, and if you go to parent, on the target, it's gonna be our forearm joint, this one. And now if I move my arm, you can see the clock got attached. So that's pretty cool, and you can do a lot of different things with constraint. For example, if I go back to basic, you can also attach the clock directly on the joint. So for example, let me show you. If you click PSR, it's gonna attach your object directly on the position you want it to be. But you can as well use like a maintain original option that is outside PSR, to not move the clock. And you can pretty much do exactly the same thing now. And as you can see, it didn't really parent it, the object, but it took the position of the forearm. If you see here, it actually follows the forearm, but it does not parent it on the forearm. So that's also quite cool, and you can do some cool effects with it. Let me go back. And what else we can show you? There's also clamp part of constraint and mirror and aim. That's really useful, but I think you can go ahead and just right click it and show help and figure it out yourself. It's really powerful tool. So I think that's about it for now. There's other options in character tab, like character object or C motion and stuff, but I would like to make like another part of the tutorial where we could talk about this, because this is like you know, it's more like it's like a template objects where you can make, you know, or you can use pre-made rigs or something. And you know, if you want to just start out, I would suggest to just use the basic tools first and get a rig going with those, and then you can, you know, go and explore the character tab and C motion and stuff, because if you will not understand the principles, it's going to be way harder to explain the, you know, character object or something like this. Also, there's a bunch of like pre-made commands and stuff in a character tab that actually is quite useful. For example, for creating IK chain, if you don't want to make an entire process that we did while making IK chain so hard. So for example, let's delete all of these. And for example, I want to make the IK chain really quickly. You can just select these joints you want to be in IK chain, go to character, commands, create IK chain, done. So there's a bunch of these, and you can go ahead and try it out. I really love the, for example, replace with. So what you can do, for example, I have this null object that's not really cool as a controller. As a controller, it's not really useful because we cannot really see on our viewport. We're gonna have to always select it on a hierarchy. So what I find way cooler is if you go to, for example, one of these primitive splines, you can pretty much just, let's scale it down maybe a little bit so the size is nice. You can just select your null that was being created by IK and go to character, commands, replace with, and side. You click it once and it attaches it to our object. And what is cool about it, that it grabs all the information and all the parenting that was done by IK. So as you can see here, the object that is our IK goal is actually here. So that's pretty cool.